A few weeks ago, something unexpected happened. When I was in college and I got a phone call from an unknown number. It was from a studio where I had applied for a Unity game developer internship a few weeks earlier. After a brief conversation, they told me they wanted to evaluate my skills before moving forward. Instead of asking me coding questions, they decided to test my problem solving skills with a practical assignment. I had just 5 days to build a prototype for a grid based puzzle game in Unity. At first, I thought 5 days that should be enough. But as soon as they explained the game, I realized this was something I had ever built before. And honestly, I had no idea that this small assignment would end up teaching me one of the biggest lessons in my game development journey. The game they asked me to build an arrow escape puzzle game. The gameplay was simple to understand. There are multiple arrows placed on a grid. When the player clicks on an arrow, it should move only in the direction it's facing. But there was one important rule. If another arrow was blocking its path, it shouldn't move. The objective was to clear all the arrows from the board by moving them in a correct order. When I first heard the idea, I immediately understood how the game should work. But understanding a game and actually building it are two very different things. At that moment, I had never built a puzzle game like this before. So naturally, I started looking for help. The first thing I did was open YouTube. I searched for tutorials. I tried different keywords hoping someone had already explained how to build this type of puzzle game. I found gameplay videos, I found projects, I even found complete source code. But there was one problem. Nobody was explaining the actual logic behind the game. For a moment, I thought about downloading one of those projects. It would have been the easiest option. But then I asked myself, if I just download someone else's project, what I am actually learning? So I made a decision. I wasn't going to download anyone's source code. I want to build this game myself. Whenever I got stuck, I used AI to clarify concepts, understanding different approaches and help me debug my code. I didn't ask AI to build the game for me. I used it the same way I would use documentation or ask a senior developer for guidance. It helped me understand the problem, but every feature, every script, every system, and every decision was still implemented by me. Once I understood what needed to be done, I opened Unity and started building. Instead of thinking about the entire game at once, I broke it down into smaller problems. The first thing I built was the grid, because without the grid, nothing else would work. Once that was ready, I started working on the arrows. Then I focused on movement. How should an arrow move? How far should it move? When should it stop? After that came collision checking. I need a way to know where another arrow was blocking the path. My first solution was pretty straightforward. I used colliders to detect if there was any other arrow in front. If nothing was blocking it, the arrow moved. Otherwise, it stayed in place. It wasn't the most advanced solution, or at least it worked until I started testing. That's when the bugs appeared. Sometimes arrows overlapped, sometimes movement wasn't smooth, sometimes collision detection failed, and sometimes fixing one bug created two new ones. I spent hours debugging, reading my own code, testing different situations, making small improvements one step at a time. Whenever I got stuck, I went back to the AI, asked questions, understood the issue, fixed it myself, and continued. The cycle repeated over and over again. Build, test, break, debug, repeat. Slowly, everything started coming together. And after 4 days of work, I finally had a working prototype. Seeing all the mechanics work together exactly the way I imagined was one of the most satisfying moments of the project. After completing the assignment, I submitted the project to the studio. A few days later, they scheduled my interview. Instead of asking random programming questions, they wanted me to explain my own project. They asked me questions like, how did you build the movement system? How are you checking whether an arrow can move? How did you choose this approach? How would you improve it? Since I had built everything myself, I was able to explain every part of the project with confidence. That felt really good because I wasn't repeating something I had memorized from a tutorial. I actually understood every line of my code. Then the interviewer said something that completely surprised me. He told me your solution works. But in production games, developers usually don't create these arrows the way you did. Instead, they often use line renderers. Honestly, that completely changed the way I looked at the project. Until that moment, I had never even considered using line renderer for a puzzle game. My solution wasn't wrong. The game worked. The assignment was completed successfully. But there was another approach that was cleaner, more flexible, and easier to maintain. That moment taught me something really important. In game development, there is almost never just one correct solution. There are multiple ways to solve the same problem, and every project is an opportunity to discover a better one. Looking back, I am actually happy that I couldn't find a complete tutorial for this game, because if I had found one, I probably would have copied it without thinking. Instead, I was forced to understand the problem, break it into smaller pieces, experiment, make mistakes, debug. and eventually build a solution that I could proudly explain. This project also changed the way I think about AI. A lot of people think using AI means copying code, but that's not how I used it. I used AI to clarify concepts, understand different approaches, and debug problems whenever I got stuck. It became a learning partner, not a shortcut. The game itself, the systems, and the final implementation were still my responsibility. And I think that is one of the best ways to use AI as a developer. Not to replace your thinking, but to make your learning faster. Even though this started as an internship assignment, it became one of the best learning experiences I have had so far. Because sometimes the best lessons comes from the figuring things out yourself. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.